What is happening, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry, I always look funny in this hat and all my hats. It has been 4 months since I purchased my Kinefinity MAVO S35 Mark II. That is a mouthful of a name. I made a whole 20-minute video as to why I'm moving on from my 6K Pro and I'm getting this camera above all of the cameras. And many of you had asked, was it worth it? Yes, it totally was. Very dramatic intro. So I spent about roughly 100 hours using this camera, 3 really big jobs this year with it. And I just spent a ton of time just doing some little stuff, filming around the house, you know, just getting all the ins and outs, finding all the quirks, finding some solutions for those quirks. And you guys know this feeling when you get excited about a new piece of tech that can not so much make you a better filmmaker, but it actually makes your life a little bit easier. Buying a new camera doesn't make me better, but it helps simplify my workflow in specific ways. And this checks a lot of boxes, which I'll get to in this video. This camera's gotten me into wanting to make products, like actual filmmaking products. And so it's done a lot. It's kind of been interesting these last couple months, and that's gonna come later. I'm jumping the gun. Can I use this on a paid shoot and can I trust it? Now, before I answer this question, what I do to every single camera that I ever own or use is I try to learn as much as I can about the camera before I put it on any paid shoot. That's what you should do. You should always test your camera. And I think it was about almost a month before I actually got this on the first big job, which was Spotify. I spent that entire time filming whatever I could, whether it be my kids here in the house, checked out the media, I checked out all the resolutions. I did everything I could to see where I can be familiarized with the menu setup and the camera as a whole and all around. The first job we did, like I mentioned, was Spotify. And just to kind of put that in a nutshell, because I actually made an entire video about this experience, but unfortunately I was not able to show it. I really wanted to show that video. This was my second time working with my first AC, Joe, and it was his first time using this camera, the Mavo S35. But the premise of the job was we came to film some interactions with high-profile players from FC Barcelona and some top-tier music artists. And they were just kind of playing a game, basically selecting some music for a playlist. We had to run the entire 2 hours or so, just have the cameras rolling and rolling. It was a lot of footage to get through. But from that experience, I learned a lot of things about this camera and what it can do on set. But let me share with you what Joe and Caleb thought about.
I dig it. I like it a lot more than I thought I would.
That's good.
I was nervous, but it's super easy to work
As
with.
always, he gets nervous every time we shoot something. The last time we shot something was with this camera, the Fujifilm camera. Now we're doing this.
But it's super solid for what it is. I think the market for it is definitely like one-man band type stuff. For this job where he has me, a first AC, pulling his focus, there's a lot of things that would be nice to have, such as power outputs on the camera, whether it's like a P-tap or a 2-pin LEMO or something. Now it's like every time you swap a battery, you have to like unplug everything plugged into the battery, pull it off, put it back on, plug it back in. It turns like something that could be like 5 seconds into like a 20 seconds.
So when Joe brought up this whole power issue, I was like, holy crap, you're right, because if you didn't know, if you didn't watch my other video, the boot up time for this camera is about 40 seconds, like 35-ish seconds. Let's say if one of the batteries had died and we had to power off everything, that's like the transmitters, that is the follow focus motors, the camera itself, and then switch batteries and then wait till it all power back on, you would probably have lost 3 to 5 minutes. Now that seems short, but like when you're limited with a high profile artist and they need to get in and out, if you lost 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes you can't get back. And that would mess up the entire shoot. So thank God that didn't happen. We had a big battery on there, nothing hicked up. We just ran and started filming. But that got me thinking about what's the possible solution to fix this in the future if I need to do something like this, or just hot swapping in general, because having to wait, 2 minutes, whatever, is just not ideal on set. So there are 2 options to use hot swappable accessories. One is the shark fin. That allows you to have a V-mount plate or Go mount plate, and you have 2 batteries attached to that. However, there was something else that I found in the market, which is this unit here. Basically, this is a battery itself. It's a 43 watt hour battery, and this attaches to your camera. And so when you do need to switch out batteries, let's pop this on here. This should light up like that. And this has a timer, so you have 2 minutes to swap out your battery. So this allows you to keep everything powered. I will have like a little breakout box, D-tap splitter, so everything can run through there. Have a voltage amp reader, all those things. And this allows me to have the camera on and not run into that issue with the powering down and wasting, 3 to 5 minutes. So if I were to pull off this battery, camera stays on. You can see now there's a little countdown right there. That gives me how much time I need before this battery dies to switch out, put a new one. So now the one thing that does nullify this sort of hot swap is the fact that the camera cannot read its media while it's on. What I mean is if you try to pull out the media to switch out a new card or whatever, and you put one in, the camera does not recognize that there's any media in there. You have to power down the camera and turn it back on with new media inside. That in itself is a headache, but luckily the media, there's big media in here. I have a 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte cartridges, so this allows me to have a really long runtime depending what format I'm in. So you see this button right here, this one here. This is an SSD button, and you can see it has this like 2 little lines. That comes from the MAVO Edge series, which has a dual SSD card slot. This only has one, but the only function this button has is that if you press it, it just shows you information of the card, like how much space you have left on it. There's nothing else you can do. It would be really nice if this becomes an eject button to tell the camera that you're taking out the card, and it'll, load itself. It will prepare itself for another card to be loaded, so you can keep the camera on and move on from there. That would be much more useful rather than you taking out the card, turning off the camera, putting in a new card, and booting it back up. Like that will save 2 minutes right there. Just a thought.
Just like more power output. For example, there's this lens port which powers a follow focus motor, but the motor that it powers is not like an industry standard one. So
No,
it's
I
like
think it's the MOV cam's version.
the MOV cam. Yeah. So it's like people don't really use that though. Like,
yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Like in this sort of world, I was asked a couple ACs I work with a lot, and I was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing?" They're like, "No, I don't mean to trash it. I don't know.
Dude, no,
I don't know if it's
trashing.
good or bad."
Because I think also like this camera is a mix of typical industry standard things,
Absolutely.
but it also has like a lot of their own proprietary
Absolutely.
types of tools to use with it, which is a weird thing to do, to be honest.
It is weird. So the menus are super simple. Like, first time I touched it, like I watched his video, his tutorial, just for me. Like and subscribe. My boy, City Dailies. But it's like the menus are super easy. You can basically figure out how you need to do anything, like change any settings. Like it's pretty much common sense. And it just needs a good cage.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's solid.
What up, everybody?
Yeah, Caleb, this is your first time using the Kinefinity, and you're sort of in the market for a camera like this.
Yeah, I mean, we've rocked this tripod is jank, by the way. I don't know, I feel like I go in waves of like convenience and easiness. I've had like Sony SLRs, which are great autofocus for like content creation, like the Fuji X-H2S. But when you're starting to do bigger jobs, your head just kind of goes to like, okay, there is a difference between a cinema camera look. I don't care what people say. I don't care what you say. There's a look for sure. But overall, like this is in like what, the $7,000 range?
Yeah, if fully kitted out, like you can spend upwards to 7,000 or so.
Yeah, so it's definitely I mean, it's piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Hearing Joshua talk about it, he's stoked on it. I think it's it seems like more of a boutique brand just because I hear about it less. Yeah, it's kind of cool to like, usually you have better customer support, better experience with a smaller company. Shooting with it was, I mean, it's really a box, and then like the handle, you build it out how you want. So it was perfect. I had the little 20 mil on it, so kind of a stubbier setup. The battery, I like my rigs clean like Joshua.
Yeah.
We shot a few hours last night. Like, it's nice to just shoot ProRes, favorite codec by far. I don't really care about RAW. I just want like a good ProRes. It's shot all in 24, looked great. No weird issues. Battery lasted plenty all night. It just boots up a little slow when I power it off, but yeah, we jammed time code. I like Super 35. I didn't notice the rolling shutter really, but I wasn't
It's
whipping
funny.
too much.
Yeah, and when you're
On a
on
wider
a
lens.
wider lens,
Yeah.
it's not as noticeable.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yes.
On longer lenses.
Well,
it's
I'm
not-
going longer tonight. I'm going on the 75 to 180. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put an easy rig on and it'll be fun. I think I'll also shoot 48 frames
Yeah,
tonight.
for mine, yeah.
Yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions. Or my GoFundMe is below. I saw you cut. You cut.
I did.
So this next unique thing about the camera, I'm going to put a article in the description below for you to read it. But the concept is called project frames per second and recording frames per second.
I bring all this up because we were running time code through these cameras. And something we were running into with the second camera is that we couldn't jam sync it. And that's because the project frames per second and the sensor frames per second were off. One was set to 25 frames per second, which we're never going to shoot that here in the US, and the other was set to 24. This is indicated at the top left corner, and the sensor frames per second, which is the one you see on the recording screen, is going to be highlighted in yellow. That tells you that your project frames per second and the sensor frames per second, they are off. So if it's highlighted yellow, you have to make sure they're both set to the same frames per second in order for it to read properly. This is how you can actually jam sync, because both settings are set properly to the correct frames per second that you want to shoot in. If the frames per second and the sensor frames per second are off and you try to jam sync your time code, it's going to automatically set it to internal. So in order for you to jam sync, you have to make sure your frames per second and your project file and your sensor frames per second are set exactly the same.
Just to get back to the other projects, I shot a project for Realme, which is a Chinese company. They have a phone. It's more like a kind of like a small profile of an artist. It has some models, modeling with the phone and dresses and stuff. That was a really run and gun type of day too. We got rained on in New York and stuff like that, but they were really great to work with. And the Delta job, my friend, he hired me to be the DP. We filmed a couple of different spots in 2 days. The first day was basically all interview, and then we would do the B-roll stuff the next day. But on the interview day, we had 3 Kinefinity's S35s. I found a camera operator who we are in the same Facebook group for Mavo. And he was more than willing to come down to Atlanta. His name is Caleb. Actually hear some of his opinions on his camera.
Yeah, so I've owned it since the Kinefinity MAVO, since it came out, and so far, like, I've used it in dust at the rodeos for full days, from literally from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. No issues at all. Color science is very similar to the Arri Alexas. Overall, pleased with my purchase and love it. Wouldn't trade it for anything else, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Same way.
Yeah, it's a great camera. They are workhorses, for sure.
Yeah. Some quirks, but I mean, every camera's not perfect.
And I will say that, like at the rodeo, it's a lot of whip hands, you know, a lot of team roping stuff and things. The rolling shutter, I didn't even notice it really in all of my footage. And it was a bunch, like, I don't imagine myself whipping pans any faster than that, so. Yeah.
And in case you are wondering where you can rent or test out the Mavos yourself, the US base is actually in LA. Origin Cine is where they have the location for Kinefinity USA. So check that out to get your hands on one as well. But yeah. Now, could I have used the X-H2S on these jobs? Probably. Would I though? Absolutely not. Outside of the image quality, which I will touch on very soon, there is a massive difference between a hybrid camera and a production camera.
Yeah, no Sherlock.
Owning a camera like the Mavo will prepare you to work on cameras like the Venice, the Aries, the Reds, because of the workflow on a technical level. And from that Spotify job alone, I learned so much about the camera and obviously the things I just mentioned of how I improved it, and it will continue to do that. But those last 2 jobs were a breeze because I knew what I was doing with the system, and I'm very comfortable with it. Image quality has been an interesting ride, and this year I've really kind of hunkered down and tried to really, sink my teeth into what that means in today's landscape of cameras, as well as skill sets as a filmmaker. And so really what I gotta say about it is that image quality is 3 facets. It's not just the camera. It starts with the camera. It is important to see what the dynamic range is, how to handle highlights and low light and all that other stuff. That's important. That's where, it starts, but it does not end there. And I hear so many weird comments about well, this camera doesn't have that or this and that. It's like we're really nitpicking on how good sensors are today. And this is no less than any other sensor that's on the market. Because the next phase is about how you, the creator, exposes it, what's in the scene. Is it a commercial setup? Because you have way more control over light. It's a narrative as well. You have way more control over light. You have control over the production on the set. You have so many different variables that incorporate and add to the image quality that you're looking at, filtrations, lenses, all these different things that attribute to a good image. Really the last bit is like, how's it look, how's it finish? Now, I am not a colorist, I am not a self-professed colorist, and most of the time I just, well, 100% of the time, I just throw on whatever Rec. 09 LUT that the camera comes with and do a little tweaking, and I am good, I am happy, I'm out the door because I'm more worried about what did my lighting look like, what the composition look like, all those other things. But once footage of any camera is in the hands of a professional colorist, the sky's the limit, yo. They can do almost anything. When people ask me about image quality, for me, it's a loaded question because there's so many different variables like I just laid out.
Now, KineLog is based off of the REC log curve. So basically you can just throw on a RE Rec. 09 LUT and you can get right to getting your base down, do your simple edits that way. And it's a very, very pleasing workflow to get into. There's no weird stuff happening, especially if you expose correctly or expose how you want it so you know what to expect. Very versatile in that way. There's really nice color and tonal separation. When it comes to detail and sharpness, the sharpness isn't screaming at you like if you were using a Sony camera or a Fuji camera. It's just a nice, pleasing image that's detailed enough, but it doesn't feel artificially sharpened. There's no weird stuff with skin tones. It looks lifelike, realistic. It has the flesh tones right. So you're gonna be in a good area when it comes to color grading with this camera. What do I know? I just slap on a Rec. 09 LUT, make sure everything's technically looking good, and then I just move on. A colorist would do 1,000 times better than me.
When it comes to this camera, internally it records ProRes. You have, in 10-bit, the highest ProRes you can get is 422 10-bit HQ. You have in all of the resolutions that it offers, and then you have 444, which is 12-bit, either in XQ or just the plain quad 4. That's 12-bit, and I find out that is more than enough for what I'm doing and how things are delivered. But I tend to just leave it in the quad 4 ProRes. I just like the way the 12-bit looks, in my opinion. And to add to that, another unique feature to this camera is that it has this thing called tonal highlight or tone highlights. And basically you can shift the dynamic range in this camera. You can shift it towards the highlights to have a better roll off, or shift it towards the shadows. And either way, you do compromise. You sacrifice the highlights if you're going more towards the shadows, and so on and so forth. So it gives you another step, another layer of how you want to expose something, which is kind of nice, and it kind of bumps it here and there. So that's definitely unique to this camera. All the Mavos do it, and I've come to actually really enjoy using it. Now my base settings are normally around 800 ISO, 6.6 tonal highlight. That generally gets me in a good spot, but then if I had to shift either way, I'm fine. And if you do just keep it towards the highlights, there's so many good programs out there today that allow you to clean up whatever digital noise you get in the shadows. Luckily, the grain kind of pattern in here, even though it's not grain, but the digital noise pattern feels like grain, similar to like the XH2S or the Blackmagic. It feels organic. Everybody throws that word around.
And the files coming out of here in terms of folder structure is actually just like the Red Komodo. You have all the individual clips in its own folder, and that folder has either the proxy files, the audio file, the LUT that comes with it, the main file, all packaged in there. It gets a little annoying, but I mean, you just bring it into Resolve and they can unpack it or put it in all the folders that it needs to. You can go from there. So that was an interesting approach to how they went about doing file management in the camera.
So the design of this camera is really nice. It's a nice cube, as you know, we're all kind of been sought after. It's a little taller than obviously the Komodo or anything like that, more boxier than the FX6. So it's a nice little nug, I guess you can say, a cube that can allow you to build it as big as you want or as small as you need it, relatively. And as you can see, it's pretty kitted out, not fully kitted out just yet, but the longest lens I have is the 85 Protus anamorphic, and that thing is just massive. You can't even see it in the frame. Yeah, that's one thing I really appreciate. It's just the well thought out design. In terms of like the versatility that this camera can offer, the mount is one of them. I know someone had asked about what's the point of the kinemount, and did it drift? It drifted. What was that? The mount. So you have a couple options. This camera came with a active E mount, so you can put actual E mount lenses on here so you can control the aperture and it'll act natively. Obviously there's no autofocus, but you have that option. And I have right now a PL mount attached to it. And then I can put whatever other mount that's available to that so I can adapt to it. But with the Kine mount, this allows you to use all of their own, sort of like metal bones. If you think about metal bones, they make a bunch of different mounts. Same thing with the Kine mount. So you have your own standard mount that they've made, and then you buy their adapters and put it on. So you have E mount, LPL mount, PL mount, and so on and so forth. So those are the two options. Having that ability to make that decision is super awesome because I love using different types of lenses. Having that versatility and not necessarily worrying about, oh, I need to rent this camera, I need to rent that camera so I can actually use these lenses. That flexibility is awesome. I'm over here slipping off my chair. Another thing I would love to mention is the monitor. It's a wonderful, seamless system. Gone are the days of me using like small HD monitors, though I have still a couple of small HD monitors for myself, but like a 7-inch monitor on a camera, that was a very bulky and thick monitor. This is super light, super durable for the most part, and is one cable from the camera to the monitor that powers it and controls it. Like that is so, you guys don't understand, having that seamless of a system is just so awesome, and it's just less to worry about. You don't have to put batteries on it. You don't have to worry about the hinge mount kind of getting loose and all that stuff. It just works. It's lightweight and it's bright, it's detailed. This is probably the best monitor outside of small HD that's not a recorder. If Kinefinity just sold this monitor, they would make so much bank. Like, I'm so serious about this monitor. It's really good. I almost missed my 5-inch that I had for this too. Now I am going to make a whole dedicated video about rigging this camera and so on and so forth. I really want to make that too because there's some things I want to call out. But when I first got this camera, there were only 3 companies that made cages for them, and I didn't like any of them. It was Tilta, Small Rig, and MAVO. I had the top plate and stuff from MAVO, but everything was so bulky. And the kind folks over at Mid49, I had reached out to them on a whim, really, and asked, hey, I would love to make some custom pieces for my camera. I know it's not popular, you probably never heard of it, and you know, I would love to see what we can do. I'm willing to make some measurements and yada, yada, yada. So we were able to do that. And in case you don't know, Mid49 is run by Ryan.
New for Mid49, quick release bridge plates.
And his wife, Elizabeth, they're the ones who created Wooden Camera, which is pretty cool, honestly. So being able to connect with them in these last couple of months, developing, well, really Ryan was developing everything. I was just throwing ideas at him. But we were able to develop a few pieces for this camera that work with their existing rig cages or rig pieces for different types of cameras that they had on their website. What we made was an adapter for their NATO top rail and handle. And then we made this custom piece for the side rib or side cage of the camera, which really needed this because I'll find myself needing to Velcro something or screw in something, but there's a limitation there, that blank space. And I mentioned it way before my video about there needs to be something here.
And so this space for me is calling out for a whole cheese plate grid.
Yeah, we were able to do that. So that was one of the solutions, again, that we kind of found and made for this camera. And it's just more streamlined. It's less bulk. There's gonna be more pieces coming along later on, but this is a really great start. Overall, this camera is very flexible, and I think that's just the main selling point. And personally, as a creator, how I like to do things, I want flexibility. Sometimes if you feel like you're just pigeonholed into just a system that does one thing fairly well, that's fine too, but sometimes I wanna use a different type of lens or build it in a certain way or be able to achieve a certain look. So I have that flexibility in this camera from the picture, from the build, and just the overall experience. I just want to share a little bit of my thoughts on how to buy your perfect camera. And the perfect camera is subjective to whoever's using it. Obviously, right now, what I'm doing, the Mavo is the perfect camera for me. Or really any production camera of this style would be perfect, but I chose the Mavo and I've been happy with it, obviously, since you've been watching this video. But if you're someone who is starting or is seasoned and you see the options of all of the mirrorless options that are out there that are fantastic, but then you also see, well, do I need a bigger camera like a Red, this and that and the other? I would, one, always identify your needs of where you are right now. The idea of future-proofing is there, but don't future-proof if you're not sure if this is the career that you want to be in. And so it's a lot of money to invest in these cameras. And I've seen so many times where people buy these cameras and then next thing you know, they're not getting the jobs that they want and they're not moving forward, and this career seems like it's not for them and they go on and leave it. So like, just really try to be honest with yourself and understand where you are, what are your needs, what you want to do, then slowly move up that way. It is totally fine to start with the basic stuff because the camera, when you're starting, doesn't necessarily matter because you're just starting. But if you're someone who's seasoned, moving on from mirrorless stuff, getting to this work, you know, again, be honest with yourself, what are your needs, and then going from there. But overall too, if you can rent, especially here in the States, it is more wise, is wiser to actually rent the camera first than spending all that money and not be happy with your purchase or having buyer's remorse because something new comes out every other month. So just, you know, use the resources that we have out there. Obviously, YouTube is one of them in terms of you want to see footage from cameras, but get it into your hands if you can here in the States. I highly recommend renting. That's going to be the best way to go about this. And then you can narrow down the things that you really need. And then I would say commit to that system for at least a year because, you know, you can be more efficient with the systems that you know most rather than jumping around. I was accused earlier that I'm the same as everyone else, jumping around from camera to camera. And, you know, I own a camera for 2 to 3 years at most, and I try to get the best out of it. But I do use a lot of cameras because I work in this space, in the personal space, and I'm trying to get into the narrative space now. So I get my hands on a lot of things because I need to have that knowledge. I need to test. I want to be a first AC. So being well versed in what's out there matters to me. But I'm not trying to own every single camera out there. I will test every single camera out there, if that makes sense. So anyway, hope this was helpful. This is the longest video I've made in a while. Let me know what you think about these longer videos. Are they helpful? Do you like hearing me just rant all day? If you made it this far, you're a real OG, and I appreciate it. So check out the links in the description, and I'll see you in the next video that I make. I'm out. See you.